Are we sure we have James? I haven't heard. Okay, all right. So welcome everybody. Wow, it seems like it's been more than a month, doesn't it, since we had our meeting? I mean, wow. So welcome to the Office of Police Ombudsman Commission, our meeting on August 18th. And I don't think I need to do introductions. Well, I might, because I don't know if everybody can see the screen. So I'm just going to start from my screen, how everybody is appearing. We have Mr. Logue, our ombudsman. We have Miss Cody, and who is our assistant. We have Miss Omana, who is our deputy ombudsman. And we have Commissioner Kelly, and we have Commissioner Smith, and we have Commissioner Wilburn, and we have our legal counsel, Mr. Bingerman. And just so you all know, our Commissioner Holman could not make it tonight. He had a little emergency, and even he was kind of sad because this would have been his last meeting. And we'll talk more about that later on the agenda. So if everybody is looking at the agenda, do we need to make any changes to it? So let me know what you're thinking, and if not, we'll take a motion to pass the agenda for the evening. Oh, we need to unmute Lad. There we go. Go ahead, Lad.
So moved.
Okay. We need a second. I think Commissioner Kelly, you seconded? Yeah. Okay. All right. All those in favor of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, moving on.
Aye.
Oh, thank you. So let's look at the July 21st minutes that you should have received in your packet and see if we need to make any adjustments to it. Hopefully you had time to look at it yesterday or today. And when you're ready, I'll take a motion for that.
So moved.
Okay, and a second. James, are you trying to second?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Yeah, I second. I can barely hear you. I'm trying to hook up another headset here.
Okay. All right, so we have the motion and seconded. All those in favor for the July 21st minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any opposing? All right, so the minutes have passed. Moving on, right on our agenda, we have, hold on, I moved it to look at the minutes. We have a guest speaker. I wonder who that is. Welcome to our meeting. So we're glad you're here.
Yep.
Council President.
All right. Well, it's great to be here. A lot of things have changed and some things are the same. Doesn't seem that long ago that I was the lawyer for the commission, but it has been 5 years. So,
Wow.
But I certainly enjoyed my time. And I really appreciate you creating some space for me. I wanted to talk about police reform. That is definitely a topic front of mind in our community and across the nation in the last few months. Obviously, for your office and the OPO for the last several years. So I just wanted to kind of share with you face to face what I think is happening and what's possible, and then entertain any questions that you have. or concerns or ideas on going forward. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about it chronologically and get to where I think we are these days. But you, of course, remember after George Floyd was killed, there were rallies and protests all across the nation, but particularly in Spokane. We had several. I went to 3 Sundays in a row, marched and listened to so many speakers with so many points of view. And I felt like our community broadly was demanding that we do something more than we had been doing. And I think some people get caught up in, well, haven't we been working on this for a while? And we have. We have done a lot of work in police reform in Spokane, both some of it voluntarily, some of it involuntarily. But overall, we've made a lot of progress. Even having an OPO and an OPOC are part of that progress. But all that said, based on all the data that we have, our criminal justice system is very racially disproportionate, especially for Black Americans and Native Americans. And there's still too much use of force, and there's still a lot of work to do with people who are having some kind of cognitive difficulty, either a temporary or a permanent one. And so there's just a lot of work to do. And people were really just saying, we've had enough talk, we need to get some things done. So City Council, we came up with a draft resolution that was kind of a roadmap on several areas, and we published that, and there were 29 points in it. I'm not going to go through all 29 of them. I'll save you for that. But a lot of them, I just want to call out the OPO, is a lot of them were based on reports and recommendations from the OPO, including, I would say most notably, to remove the special tactics category in use of force, or exceptional tactics, which, as Bart said very wisely, means that instead of policy driving behavior, behavior begins to drive policy. But that was just one of many recommendations we incorporated. And some of the recommendations were very specific, of limiting the use of chokeholds and neck restraints and rubber bullets and police dogs in situations, and limiting them to when people were actually in danger, either police officers or bystanders, and no longer using those techniques simply for compliance. I think that's the way I try to explain it to people, is that if someone's in danger, yes, go ahead and use intermediate force. It's hopefully non-lethal, but it is traumatic for people, whether it's getting bit by a dog or shot by rubber bullets. It should not be used against people who are peacefully protesting and are simply disregarding police orders. So those were the most controversial ones, but then there were broader ones of really diving into racial equity and really essentially not resting until we have resolved racial disproportionality, and having a strategic plan that we reviewed, and adequate resources and training, and just not resting until we solve that issue. It's not enough to say we have it, which are, to the credit of our police department, they have acknowledged with their own data that when they voluntarily stop people, they're doing it disproportionately, not intentionally, but they are. But you can't just say, well, that's how it is. You have to do something about it. Also reimagining public safety, and not necessarily sending commissioned armed officers to 911 calls that don't need weapons. And just kind of imagining, and again, this is some wisdom that's come from the OPO to us, but like the CAHOOTS program down in Eugene, where they dispatch social service organizations to mental health breakdowns where people don't have weapons. So, like I said, there were about 29 of those, and we laid those out. And, some people got upset that we were criticizing law enforcement, and that certainly wasn't the point. Some people were excited. but it was perceived as a somewhat adversarial document. And right around the same time, you might remember there was a vote on the police guild contract, and the council turned that down because it didn't empower the OPO to publish closing reports independently and do independent investigations in ways that wouldn't interfere with IA investigations, which were also in the 29 proposals. So things were actually getting a little testy. The police department scheduled media availability on every Thursday to cover one of the proposed reforms and to show why they didn't need that reform. And they did it during our our council study sessions, and then would criticize us if we didn't show up to those, even though we're not allowed to gather as a council during the COVID times. So it was getting very adversarial. There was big Facebook campaigns against council. But about that time, I sat down with the city administrator and we started imagining perhaps a different process. Instead of just passing 29 ordinances that would address each of those issues in a 5-2 votes or 4-3 votes, risking mayoral vetoes or not vetoes. We started brainstorming about having a type of a community conversation on these issues. And a couple weeks ago, we had a press conference where we've kind of generally announced this approach. We haven't gotten into the specifics yet, but we released some of the principles and values that we wanted to include in the conversation. And I'm not quite at liberty yet to tell you all the specifics that are going on, but the idea essentially is to gather city council members, police leadership. We could certainly have someone from either the commission or the OPO or both. Community advocates, especially from communities that have been most impacted by police activity, and just average police, and really sit down and go through all these points. Not so much that we're going to convince any one group or aspect of the other's truth, but really to listen to all of it. But the most important thing to me is that we go through all of them. And I think the 29 points are pretty comprehensive. I've shopped it around to the various groups that are most outspoken, and they haven't really added anything more to it. So it covers the whole thing. It covers qualified immunity. It covers hiring more co-deployed social workers instead of police officers. And it just, all the various things I'm sure that you all have heard about in the past to discuss, is there some common ground? And I'm reasonably confident, based on my conversations with the mayor, that most of those 29 points are already almost in agreement on. It's just a matter of implementing them. And then some of them just need a little more fleshing out. And then there's a few, like when to use police dogs and when to use rubber bullets and things like that, that are going to be more challenging to get common ground, because it just depends on where you sit. If you're a police officer and you feel like you're under threat, you don't want to be able to have to hesitate to protect yourself. And yet, if you're a peaceful protester raising your hands, you don't want to get shot with a rubber bullet, even if you're not quick enough to exit the rally. So some of those are a little tougher. And as always the case, there are people who like to stir up trouble and polarize and divide us that have kind of twisted some of these things out there. But that's part of the conversation. So I just really wanted to share that with you, that a lot of the work that you've been doing, we're trying to elevate to a new conversation in the community. And in my best world, we would have an independent outside facilitator to lead this conversation and take as long as we need to have it. And yet at the same time, as we agree on things, which I think, again, the majority will agree on right off the bat, we'll start implementing them. So for instance, we have money set aside for public safety officers from the property tax levy that is currently unallocated in the budget. And we could use that to hire those 6 social workers and have 6 more co-deployed people, which is by all reports the most successful crime stopping intervention that we've had in the city in the last few years. And we would be basically doubling that capability, and we wouldn't be taking money away from anyone to do it. It's just sitting there in our account. So anyway, I think I'll take a breath of air and pause and answer any questions or hear comments or concerns or anything else.
Go ahead.
What's that, Jenny?
I said, go ahead.
Okay. Brian, thank you for this update. I've been reading about the 29 points or items and have been excited about it. I appreciate hearing the background regarding the SPD and their feeling the tension of all this. I think that's just going to be the nature of the beast. You're going to have some tension, and that's part of how change happens. I'm really excited about the social worker idea of the budget has the money for it. Let's try it and see what happens. And one lingering question I have goes back to City Council not passing the Guild's contract. Can you give me an update on that, or us an update? Is the contract being worked on, or is it part of these 29 points? If you could maybe elaborate on that.
Yeah, so they're not connected formally. I think they do interact with each other, mostly just trying to restore the relationship between the department and the community, which, you know, has been my work since really 2006. And one of the reasons we started the OPO and the OPOC is to try to heal that. So it's part of that process. But where there is some overlap, direct overlap, is that in the 29 points, it includes independent closing reports, independent investigations. So those particular points, as you might recall from if you watched or read about the council debate, that was the sticking point on the contract. It was not the money or any other issue. It was just that, you know, the voters by 70% passed that independent civilian oversight, and we have not realized it yet for a variety of convoluted legal reasons that are, I can't even explain it, even though I'm a lawyer, but we haven't gotten there yet. So the status is I think I'm safe to say, without violating any kind of confidences or executive sessions, is that we are in discussion. We continue to be in discussions with the Police Guild over the contract, and that includes all aspects of it, but in particular, the civilian oversight pieces. And there's no dates out there or any specific things about that, but that's a good sign. As you might know, this contract we've been negotiating, and when I say we, I mean the city, not the council. The council has no part in the negotiation, so it's the administration and their lawyers. But this contract was supposed to start in 2017 and end at the end of this year. So we're almost, and that's one reason why we might get to an agreement, because if we get to the end of the year, the fact that there is no independent reports allowed or investigations, it doesn't really matter because the time is over. So there is a little bit of interesting play there. It would just be about the money. But one of the reasons we, or I should just speak for myself, not for the council as a whole, but if we had agreed on this contract now, even though it was only going to last another 6 months, the way it works, as you probably had this explained to you, but whatever contract is in place, when it expires, it stays in place even though until the next one's there. And so if we'd agreed to the language one more time that there was no independent oversight or closing reports, we would have been affirming yet again that the city was okay violating the charter. And so that was really what stopped us. Is it wasn't just that we weren't going to get it for the last 6 months of the contract, it's that we were going to be setting yet another precedent without it. And we just, or at least for myself, I really balked at that. But anyway, someone asked me, I think a reporter today, and I just said, well, I can't say I'm optimistic about the new contract, but I'm more optimistic than I have been in a long time. So there's some open to that.
Thanks.
Brian, I was going to ask, are we allowed to see the 29 ordinance? Are they out there, or is that?
Oh yeah, it's a public document. I can send it to,
Okay.
I'll send it to the office. And the only thing I will say is that it's kind of out of date now in terms of the languaging. It's written very proactively, like we are going to do this, we're going to ban this, we're going to do that. The new approach is to rewrite it around the issues. So instead of saying we will ban police dogs intentionally biting people except in situations of deadly force, now it would simply say we are going to examine when we use police dogs to intentionally bite people. So it'll be a little more neutral, not quite as charged. And just to talk about that, I'd love to, since that's been really twisted around. Again, you may know this if you've gotten reports, but in 2019, they used police dogs over 1,000 times, but only 24 times did they use them to intentionally bite someone. So this intentionally bite situation is a very small subset of dog use. And so if we're impacting when officers order dogs to bite people, it's not changing their lives. It's not changing their safety up in a big way. It's only 24. And I haven't seen all of those 24 use of force reports, but I imagine that some of them were very justified, that the person was acting in a dangerous manner. But we know at least one of them that the OPO did a very extensive report on was a little bit questionable. And frankly, what I tell people is until the police chief tells me that that violated policy, that policy needs to be changed. That's just my, that's the best example. But I will tell you that there's a new sergeant, Spearing, who's in charge of canines. And he used to be the sergeant in charge of co-deployed social workers. And he has a different approach than the previous sergeant. And he's rewriting the reports and, the procedures. And he's invited council to have some input on that. And so, again, we might get there on the dog bite thing without passing anything. And that's really the idea. So that's just an example. But if you probably don't get all the emails I do, but there's people that saying, you're going to keep my family member police officer from protecting him or herself. And, this is horrible. And people will have to shoot people because they can't send the guns. And that, again, that's just not the point. The point is use a dog to bite someone if you absolutely have to, and there's no lesser means to protect yourself or the public. But don't just do it because the person's a little bit slow in complying, essentially. And that's just me talking. So.
Okay. I'm going to add one more thing. There was a newspaper article recently about the police chief, you, and I believe the mayor having some discussions. In my opinion, I really think somebody from the OPO office should be involved in the discussion.
Yeah.
Whether that's Mr. Logue or Miss Amana. I just think that's really important, and I think it would be important in the public's eye to see that we are there, being part of the conversation. So I just want to throw that out.
Well, I totally agree with you, and I've been imagining that there will be a role or perhaps even multiple roles for that, because essentially that is the OPO is our expertise, subject matter expertise on what best practices are and things. So I'm imagining that how it comes down and who's sitting next to who and what exact, I don't know. A lot of this process, in my experience, is a lot less about data and best practices and a lot about emotion and feelings, that's fine. That's what it is. And so there's a lot of that out there. And frankly, my hope is that we'll get through as many of these 29 as we can. So great. And if we don't get all 29 agreed to, and so what? We've got 25, then that's awesome. We're ahead of the game. But I think there's this opportunity for people to not just speak their lived experience, which is also important, especially for people who are not in power and influence, but also a chance for people to listen to lived experiences. And that's really what I'm playing for and hoping. And I'm not, naive enough to think that we'll just have these conversations and then everyone will get everyone's experience and it'll all be fine. But I think there's some possibility that some people's minds and hearts will be moved. And if we have the right people there, and the right people to me are the people who care the most about it, no matter whether they have a uniform or not, or they get paid to care about it, or just they have a family member that motivates them to care about it. I think that will be a difference maker. And we've just never done that. And frankly, I haven't seen many examples. And so yet again, I think Spokane can lead the way. I read an article over the weekend on this issue just nationally, and it was like, do we need truth and reconciliation commissions? A la South Africa, and they were just kind of comparing some United States efforts in that regards and some international. And my belief is yes, we do. We have to hear from people, no matter where they come from. They have their wounds and they have their beliefs, and they need to be heard. And then people need to hear. And I think it's as much about that as anything. We still need very specific policy improvements, but that's really only part of the equation. But yeah, so I will definitely create space for the OPO and or the OPOC. The challenge is going to be at the end of the day, we'll have only so many seats at the table, and there'll be a lot of people who we need to be there. And we're also dealing with COVID at the moment, which complicates it. But I see this as really at least a year-long process. So it's not going to be a short process. But I'll definitely be leaning on your staff, if not actual commission members as well. So.
Okay. Do we have any other questions, comments?
Yes,
Mr. Banks?
Councilman. I have a question concerning the body cameras.
Mhm.
Is there a policy in place that requires the officers to have the body cameras on? There's been a couple of incidents I'm aware of where there was use of force, but the officers said that they didn't have the camera on.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if that was addressed.
Yeah, that's addressed. Body cameras are addressed two ways. One is to strengthen the requirement that they have them on their actual body and that they have them turned on. There's a video our friend Mr. Breen sent me of a K-9 officer who responded without his body camera on at all. He wasn't in uniform. He just responded. That was one. And then, of course, we've heard multiple occasions where they forgot to turn it on, or, you always worry, are they turning it off before they do something? I mean, and I've had some conversations with police leadership about that. They assure me that is against policy, but I haven't really seen much serious discipline around it, that people really understand that. And so that is addressed. And then the second piece that's addressed is on the other end of it is getting access to that body camera footage. They, again, on the same incident that the OPO wrote the report on, the police department took the position that not even city council could see the body camera footage, which was in violation to me of state law, in my opinion. But we've made the proposal that it have to be available in 45 days, assuming we give them enough resources so that they can do the redactions and all. There's always exceptions to everything, but but yeah, so both ends of it. One, you have to have it on. Secondly, you have to release it, and especially release it on high impact events of concern, and including, just to add, I'm breaking my promise. I might get to all 29 by the end of it, but one of them is when somebody makes a public records request for police records or videos, what I want it to be is they then post the response to that request on the website so anyone could get it. So you don't, if once one person orders it and spends the money to get the records, then anybody could get it, just why not? So there's just, again, there's a bunch of things, just kind of practical. Some of them are practical, some of them are philosophical, but the idea is that transparency, which is, again, what your office is built on.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question. One topic that has come up in our meetings is that of officer wellness. We're all very sensitive to the fact that the majority of police officers out there try and do the right thing, and in fact do the right thing, but nonetheless, they see horrible things every single day, and that has an impact.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know if there is any component of these 29 plan or points which deals with promoting officer wellness in a meaningful and a non-judgmental way.
Yes, great point, and the answer is yes.
Good.
It started, I think, in the 29, the version of the 29, it was mostly focused on sleep issues. But so when you see that one, you'll probably only see the sleep issue. There might be a little more about it. In the joint document that I'm working on with the mayor's office, it addresses far more than that, just straight up mental health issues and officer wellness. So yeah, it's an excellent point. We ask our officers to do more and more under incredibly stressful situations, and then wonder when something happens. And so that is part of it. But I just want to caution you, when you see the thing I'm going to send you, it may not be as developed as the next one that you will see when I'm authorized to publish the next one.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments, Mr.
Hey,
Banks?
Bart.
Oh, there you go, Bart.
Hey, good evening, Council President. My question isn't about the reforms, but it is loosely related. So what I wanted to ask you about kind of comes out of the officer-involved shooting that we just had, and reforms taken by the state with I-940. And something that we came up with as an issue, I happened to be out of town this time on vacation, but had I been in town, because SPD is no longer involved at all in the investigation, initial or otherwise, there is no mechanism to call us out. That belongs to, in this case, it would have been the Spokane County Sheriff's Office, who's running that portion of the investigation. And we don't have agreements in place for how to deal with that.
Okay.
When we talk about reforms, I would ask that we consider some of these unintended issues which may come up if we implement those things. That was just a comment I wanted to make, sir. And if you have an idea on that call out piece.
Yeah, well, so I wouldn't have thought of it unless you brought it up. So I appreciate you raising it. That's, totally makes sense. And I will get that added at some point. Again, I think I owe another draft back to the mayor's office after I finish getting some city council comment, and I will aspire to get that in there. But yeah, that totally needs to get, we got what we wanted in some ways, that it's a completely independent investigation from an outside agency now, instead of the shadow investigators of the agency that was under investigation. But if you're cut out of the process, that does no good. I'll also just add, since we're talking about related subjects, is that the city is pushing very hard at the state legislature to get the same right to publish independent closing reports and do independent investigations, and to take ombudsman issues out of collective bargaining. So we put it on our legislative agenda. We made a special resolution to change it in the middle of the year instead of the normal cycle. And that's because we thought that the legislature was going to go into special session. And I have been having one-on-one meetings with key legislators who are doing police reform. There's a bit of a temporary caucus on police reform at the legislature right now. And they're very serious about it. They've got a lot of proposals. And one of the ones that we're pushing, and Senate Majority Leader Billig from Spokane is pushing, is empowering civilian police oversight for communities that want it without having to deal with the collective bargaining process, on the condition always that it doesn't interfere with daily working conditions. You know, it's not going to interfere with the discipline of any particular officer. It's looking forward to how do we improve things and telling the story without naming names of what happened in any particular situation. So that's just some other work that we're doing beyond the mayoral conversation.
Can I ask, do you have a sponsor? Senator Billig?
Yeah, you know, I don't think it's in a bill yet,
Oh,
but the people that, so Senator Billig has his blessing. He doesn't run bills very often because he's majority leader, but I've had a long talk with Roger Goodman, who's the chair of the House committee, and then Jamie Peterson, who's the chair of the Senate committee, and then 3 other legislators who are very passionate about it. And they, like I say, they have this kind of ad hoc police reform caucus, and they are working on a suite of bills. Originally, it was going to be one bill with a lot of omnibus bill with a lot of provisions. Now it looks like, according to the leadership, there'll be a lot of bills, and we're just going to try to make sure our provision gets in there. But a lot of these 29 things that we're talking about, those are also, there's some crossover there at the state level. So.
okay. Any other questions?
All right. Well, thank you again so much for having me. Thanks for your work. I know I care about you, and I don't come to see you very often, but I'm glad that you're doing the work, and I wish you well in getting some, I think you have maybe some new commissioners we need. So please.
I hope so.
Please harangue.
Anything yet?
Well, to the degree that they're council appointees, please harangue your
yes,
district council people, and I will encourage them as well. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Thank you so
Okay.
much for being here
All right.
today with us.
All right. We'll see you guys. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye. Okay, so next on our agenda is public forum. Miss Cody, do we have anybody to speak?
There is nobody signed up to speak at this time.
Okay. All right, so we will move on to the monthly report. So Mr. Logue first gonna be given it.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't hear you.
Oh, I said, I didn't know if it was you or Miss Amanda that were gonna be given the report.
I'll give it a go.
Okay.
Just want to let you know that in July, I think if you remember back at our last briefing, we didn't have a lot of casework going on because of the recent community unrest and the busyness of everyone in internal affairs. And that casework picked up significantly in July. If you notice on the report, I certified 14 cases for the month. And that's out of just 40 for the year. So more than 25% were done last month. In that process, I requested further investigation 3 times. In addition, I had a number of phone calls with the IA Lieutenant Wool on a variety of subjects. So I'd actually say in July, the communication was actually very good. There's a lot of ongoing investigations. As you remember, we put in a lot of different complaints. And not only did the complaints come from us, SPD also took a variety directly to them. And so I've had the opportunity to participate in 9 interviews in internal affairs last month, which is, again, 25% of the work for the year. So it was a pretty busy month. Contacts also stayed high in July. We had 133 for the month, which is higher than average, but really not surprising with what's going on nationally. We conducted 21 interviews of community members, and we filed 6 complaints with SPD. In addition to that, we referred 12 other cases, 8 of those internally to SPD, and 4 were to outside groups, the Sheriff's Office, Crime Check, 911 Dispatch, as well as City Council. To give you an example of an internal referral, I lost the number, but it's on the page. I think it's 20-60. That was a community contact where the person was concerned about off-duty SPD officers that were hired by Walmart and to do their security, and they were concerned with where those officers were parking in the parking lot. So it was a concern for the community member, but it wouldn't have risen to the level where we could have perceived misconduct whatsoever. So we referred that as an internal referral to Lieutenant Wool, and then we also will let Walmart know that there are community concerns in that regard. So we get a lot of those sorts of concerns brought to our office as well. On the training front, I'm sure most of you know and are deeply engaged in it. The virtual NACOL conference for 2020 started mid-July. In fact, we had session 17 today. And the way that's going is that we are having 90-minute sessions. They start at noon here and they go through 1:30. And I think most weeks we've had 4. I think we had one week that had 3 sessions. And this week on Friday, if you haven't heard yet, NACOL is going to have a virtual kind of networking session. So that's going to be on Friday. They're going to send out some information. It may have even come out today that I just haven't received it, but it's going to be a Zoom meeting. I'm going to go to it and see how they handle that, because those conferences can be pretty big, so I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but it is a chance to communicate with your colleagues around the country. And in that mindset, I have been continuing to serve on the NACOL Strategic Planning Committee, which has really been interesting this last couple of months with the national conversation. My term ends mid-September, but I intend to apply again for that. Outside of that, I had an excellent conversation with Dr. Roberta Wilburn, who called me, and we discussed allyship during the time. It was just a very interesting conversation, and frankly, if I could be so bold, I would invite our commissioner to invite her to come and talk about that topic with our commission. It was really, really good and timely right now. One thing that's a little odd, which you'll see on the report, is I did go to Montana for an evening for that Leadership 2020 group that I'm working, or that I've been participating in all year long. And that was an overnight kind of an unplugged solitude kind of thing. And the focus was on solitude, planning, self-care, faith, figuring out, without the noise that surrounds us all of the time, where we are, where we're going, what we want to accomplish in the upcoming months. It was absolutely excellent. For meetings and contacts of significance, we had 34 of them with IA in July, 11 others with SPD. We had 12 contacts with the commission. One of those included with Mr. Bingaman. And sir, I must tell you, I just got back from a couple of days off, and I am deeply engaged in this process back and forth with accounting, and we are going to figure this out. Hopefully very, very shortly. I have no idea why it's hard, but I think we're close. I thought we were across the finish line a couple of times, but I think we're close. And we're working on it, and I will watch that very, very closely. We also had 7 contacts with council members and staff. I had a medical procedure which took me out for about a week, and then I just came off of what was planned to be 2 weeks of vacation, followed by some jury duty. I actually had one vacation day where I wasn't contacted at all in regards to work. So we had one good solid day. I will endeavor to make that more than one next time around. But it didn't happen in July, but I wanted to at least make sure that you were in the loop. I shot out an email to the commission. I was called by Lieutenant Wool the night of August 7th. We had a critical incident, which I referenced earlier to Council President Beggs on Crestline that involved 2 officers from SPD. SPD's put out an initial press release in regards to who they were and what happened, and all future information on that, though, comes from the sheriff's office. So I don't have anything additional to report. Steve and I did have quite a conversation as to the way forward, which is why I brought that up with Council President Beggs, because frankly, neither of us know what the answer should be. But it is one that both of us feel that we should figure out shortly. That's my report, subject to your questions.
Were you able to go out and do any investigating on that shooting or not? I mean,
I was on the coast, ma'am. I wasn't.
Oh, that's right. You were on the coast, but you got a call, right?
I did.
Okay. All right. Okay.
But had I been here, I would not have.
Okay.
Because we don't have that agreement set up with the SIR team. And because there was no SPD officers there, if you recall, I don't even remember, it might have even been 2 years ago, on one of the incidents, the prosecutor was asking questions in regards to what we were doing out there. So we want to make sure that everybody's fully in the loop for what we're doing and why we're there. Because it is a crime scene, an active crime scene. So.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Logue? Okay, let's do that.
This has to do with what was mentioned last month, that Chief Meidel did indeed ask the OPO to investigate one of the protests that were unplanned in the evening. Are you able to comment or update us on any of that?
Very little, sir. The day he sent us out the request to do that, we responded in writing that we would do that. We also shot out the email asking for information to be delivered. He approved that information and shot it to Director McConnell to start that process, because there's quite a bit of stuff out there that they need to give us access to. A week after that, we sent Director McConnell a pretty detailed list of specific information we were looking for. And I got back in contact with her today in regards to the status on that. And because it hasn't been completed. And I just mentioned that we're 3 weeks out after the approval process, and we need to be getting that information so we can get to work on it. So that's where we're at right now. We are, interestingly enough, we're not the only oversight agency looking at this, this community unrest dynamic, which has taken place over the last couple of months. So we're in contact with the Office of the Independent Monitor in Denver, who is also conducting a review, as well as some strategic planning partners that I have. End of the day, our goal is to bring the very best advice forward for potential future things, but we can't look at what went right or what did not go right until we have access to the information. So really, it's getting that unimpeded access the way we're supposed to have it, getting that done, setting that up, and so we can get moving on it.
So the issue is timeliness, which is not happening without fanning the embers or any tension. It should be moving a little faster, that information that you need, or is something it's just part of the.
You know, in a perfect world, sir, I would say I'd love to be able to send an email and then an hour later have everything populated. I know it's August, lots of people are doing lots of things and they have a full work schedule before they drop in my request. So I'm going to give them a little bit of grace right now. See if my please hurry, you know, the sooner we have access to it, the sooner we can answer the chief's question. Email is heated. Until it's not, until I'm concerned, I'm not going to make something out that may or may not be there. But since you said that, recall I brought to the commission's attention months ago in regards to a public records request, which I put in regarding a case in 2018. And I put my request in on October 11th, 2018. And I've received delay after delay after delay after delay after delay message. Today I got a message that said, you haven't accessed this site for however many days. So unless you respond to us, we are going to consider this public records request abandoned. So at the almost 2-year mark, they are still resisting a simple public records request from our office. And that's just wrong. And I think it's in violation of state law, and we need to get that fixed. Because it's not a hard one. It was a simple case. But that's where there's a delay. If there is no, I mean, if we can't get information that's publicly or readily available to a normal citizen, I don't know what to do with this. So I wanted to at least mention that to the commission. That happened today. I responded and said, no, please don't close my case. I expect it to be fully complied with.
Is that something Mr. Bingham can be helpful with?
I don't know. He's not my attorney.
Well, let me just say that I put in a public records request. I'm trying to remember when it was. I don't know, Christina or Luby May, if you remember when I put that request in, and I got an initial, but then it keeps getting delayed again. I just got one today saying because it's not in the office. So I need to go back to that date. It was well before COVID. It must have been last 2019. So maybe Mr. Bingham can answer that question about public records request.
Yeah, we definitely can talk about it. Jenny, do you want Mr. Logue and I to talk later on about this?
Yes, I would.
Okay, I'll be in contact with you, sir.
Great.
That would be awesome. And then I'll get the dates on mine too. So figure that piece out. Okay. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Logue? All right. So moving on to the agenda, if you notice, it says the OPOC legal contract update. So it came to our attention this past week, and please, Ms. Cody or Mr. Logue or Ms. Amana, if my information is not correct, please feel free to chime in and help me with this. But Mr. Bingerman should have received a payment for his June invoice, and because we all thought the paperwork was in. And lo and behold, when Miss Amana called accounting to see what was going on, oh, we didn't have all the forms that we needed from Mr. Bingerman. And I'm trying to be real nice about it. But instead of accounting contacting the OPO or the OPOC, it took Miss Lamana, somebody from the OPO, to call them and find out what the heck was going on. So that was that piece about the invoice. But like Mr. Logue alluded to, I think that's getting taken care of, right? As best as possible, okay? But the other thing on the contract that we have for Mr. Bingerman is the part where, and Mr. Bingerman and I have had this conversation a couple times. In his contract, it says that he cannot sue the city on our behalf. So we had a great conversation, and I know I've talked to other people about this. If he is our attorney and we ask him to do something, and his contract says that he can't, and I don't know the legal term for it, do any ill will against the city, then that's really not making us independent, an independent oversight. We did find out that that piece of language referred actually to Mr. Beggs, because when he became our legal counsel way back when, it was just about the time where, you know, not about the time because that happened a long time ago, but he was the attorney for the AutoZem case, and he sued the city. So now he's coming on to be the OPOC legal counsel. And so the city wanted to make sure that he wouldn't turn around and sue the city again for whatever. I know I'm kind of really condensing it. So, so that piece of it's just really, I'm just going to use the word goofy. This whole thing is so goofy. And David and I had a conversation today about there's just some things in his contract that he doesn't have in other contracts with any of his other clients or, you know, customers. So we're just really going to be looking at that piece and work maybe on that language about not turning around and whatever. Well, my thing is file a grievance. I mean, if we're part of the if we're part of the Police Guild contract, shouldn't we be able to file a grievance? I don't know. But right now in his contract, it says that he cannot do anything ill will against the city of Spokane. So I hope I'm making sense. I don't know, Libby May or Bart or Christine, if you want to chime in there, or, you know, David. I don't know if I made sense to the commissioners on that one. Oh, Elizabeth.
Well, and I haven't seen the contract, but my gut reaction is that the city is unjustifiably impinging upon Mr. Bingham's ethical duty to zealously represent his client, that is to say, the OPOC. Simply put, it compromises him, and it cannot do that.
You said it excellently. So, yeah.
If I can also add a point, something to consider is if the OPOC were to have a suit brought against it or a grievance filed against it, then their attorney, Mr. Bingerman, should be able to defend the OPOC, and with the current terms in the contract, that's unclear. And so something that I recommend to the commission is to kind of think of a way of changing that term in the contract, possibly by contacting legal as a starting point.
How come this wasn't noticed before? I'm sure there were folks who were scrutinizing this, and how did we not catch that before it was signed? I wonder.
Well, yeah, well, actually, you know who caught it? Mr. Bingerman caught it. So he brought it up, saying this is, this is an issue right here.
Can this be resolved in the near future, or do we have to wait for the renewal of his contract a year from now?
Yeah, I'm going to let Ms. Omana answer that question.
Yeah, so a contract can be amended at any time. It's just I think we amended his contract recently. So it would just be whatever paperwork through legal to amend the contract.
Okay.
Who would have to approve the language either being taken out or new language? Maybe May. Who would have to approve that?
My guess would be Mike Ormsby.
Okay. Okay. So I wanted to update everybody on that. Are there any more questions about that particular? Mr. Bingerman, do you want to add anything about that? Oh, Christina's going to unmute you. Okay.
There we go. Sorry, I think I unmuted and then maybe she unmuted and then I remuted. I think we probably hit the button at the same time. So I pulled up the contract while you guys were talking. So I actually have the section, and I did review it prior. There was some discussion about it, before my office ever entered into it. Do you guys want me to read you that section so that everyone's kind of on the same page about what it says?
Sure.
So it is section, it's under ID, it's called conflicts of interest. It says the firm or attorney who is selected to represent the OPOC must disclose any actual or potential conflicts of interest and will be prohibited from engaging in or carrying on any legal work on behalf of any client that is directly adverse to the OPOC, the mayor, or their interests without the specific written consent and waiver of the chair of the OPOC. And there's a couple other sentences, but that's the basis right there.
Sounds like, right? For his work that he did against the city. So can that just take it out?
It could be amended out, yeah.
Okay. All right. So we will, so just so everybody knows, we'll be working on that piece. Right now, we're just trying to get all the paperwork that supposedly needs to, I think Lou already did that today, submitted it up to accounting. So we're just trying to work on so he can get paid for June and July. So is that correct, Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
All right. So any other? Did I just disappear? Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. We just can't see you.
Well, what happened to me? I don't know what happened. There we go. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, sorry about that. You guys are all laughing. I know. It's like it was saying my internet internet connection was bad, so I said always allow, and then my face disappears. Okay, moving on to our agenda, commissioner vacancies. As we talked about last month, this is the last meeting for Commissioner Kelly and the last meeting for Commissioner Holman. And so we have 2 vacancies. Now, I have been in touch with Councilwoman Burke, but I have not heard back from her regarding the vacancy of Commissioner Holman. And to be honest, I have not pursued Commissioner Kelly's vacancy yet. So maybe do you know anything, Commissioner Kelly? I see you're trying to speak.
Yeah, I notified Mr. Beggs that after the expiration of the current term, I would not reapply to be reappointed.
Okay, thank you. So we'll have 2 vacancies. So we will be working on that. My term expires, I believe, on September 15th. And I have emailed Candace Bum and Karen Stratton, and I have not heard back from them. So if you don't see me, you'll know why. No, I'm just kidding. But so I will again pursue that avenue to be reinstated. So if you know anybody that might be interested, we had somebody interested in Commissioner Holman's position, but Ms. Burke has not finalized that yet. So I don't know. I really don't know what's going on. I think I just need to call her. I don't think the emails and the texting are working that well. So
if I could add, I think it's important to impress upon the relevant council people that if these seats are not filled promptly, the OPOC is in serious danger of not having a quorum and accordingly conducting any business.
Very good point. Which we'll talk about the meeting next month here towards.
Commissioner Rose, would you like me to post something on the Facebook page?
Sure, I think that would be great.
I will. I can also reach out to the people who do the social media at the city and ask for them to post as well.
That would be great. Thank you. That would be awesome. Mr. Lowe?
I'm reading SMC, and in 04.32.150 letter F, terms of office number 4, there is a possibility that each member shall continue to serve in such capacity until the member's successor has been duly appointed and is acting, provided, however, that the period shall not exceed 90 days past the expiration of the member's term.
Oh. I'm looking at Commissioner Kelly. Not that you need to say anything, Dale, but I didn't. Okay, I didn't realize we had that language. Okay, so that's something to ponder. I will let Commissioner Holmes know that language is there in case. Does it say about any type of step we need to do, or it's just there?
It's just there, ma'am.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you for pointing that out. Okay. Any more questions or discussion on this particular topic about our vacancies? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to commissioners now. Do any of our commissioners have anything they would like to say? Okay, there we go. Commissioner Smith.
Sorry, Christina, you're doing the work for me, and I keep forgetting that. I've finally have been finding the time to look at the NACOL classes. I took one last night on LAPDs and how they stop folks for whatever reason, and how is procedural justice being administered or not in these stops in the LA city region. And I just say it was very interesting, and so I'm glad that we have the archived, and we can watch these at our pleasure and time. And probably just a little bit of secretarial work. Christina, should I let you know if I've taken one, or just, I think NACOL is suggesting that I just keep a log on their website, and when I'm done with NACOL for this year, I can submit the classes I've taken and to NACOL, and they will keep track of things.
So there's a form that you will fill out. I do it after each class that I take. And I'll send you the link so that you can do that. But they usually, at the beginning of the webinar, there's a link that you can click on and just go there. You just have to register, do it all online.
And I'm just putting this out also, if any of you take or do one of the webinars that are archived and you find it really interesting, maybe do a shout out or email or text. I would love to hear any recommendations. There's so many of them, but any recommendations that you think are pertinent to our work here in Spokane, I would certainly welcome any recommendation. And then I have a question regarding Commissioner Wilburn's wife, Roberta, and what was it that she was presenting? Anything that comes from their company or consulting firm, I'm always interested, and was just curious as to what she presented to a handful of you.
I think it was just Mr. Lowe.
Yeah, it was just me, and she didn't make it clear if it was for Wilburn and Associates or whether or not it was part of her work at, I think it's Whitworth, right, sir? But how to be an ally, right?
Oh, okay.
It's just an appropriate conversation right now. I am not proportionally affected by my contacts with the police. Well, maybe I am as the ombudsman, but as a white male, I don't face the same issues that, unfortunately, we would think it would be even across the board, but it's just different. And how to be an ally as a white to those those who are in need and are crying out for social justice right now.
Okay. Yeah. And there was, I think, one of them mentioned that if Dr. Wilburn is willing to present to us, I would do that. Anyway, just putting that out.
It was very, very interesting. And,
yeah, I bet.
And you had mentioned sessions. I liked, at least for the first 8, 2, 4, 6, 7, and 8.
2, 4, 6.
6 and 7 underlined as really good.
Hold on just for a second.
2.
You said 2, 4, 6,
7, 8, and 8. And I really liked 6 and 7.
6 and 7 especially. Okay.
And I'll give a report on the next 8 once we're there.
Really liked 1, 3, 5, 9, and 10. I'm just kidding.
So it looks like I just need to watch everything.
I really like the one, Lad, you're talking about, session 3. That was eye-opener, learning about how LA had their, they have different names, but I'll just say the OPO and the OPOC. but I literally went into shock. I'm looking at my notes. They call their ombudsman the Inspector General, and that he had unlimited access to the chief's report, including discipline, everything. He could go right on and look at everything, and like right away. And I was just really in awe of that, how they managed to do that. And it was number 3 was very interesting. So yeah, they're very good sessions. So the one about Mexico was a little different, but it was interesting, that piece. So learned a lot of things that I didn't know. So, okay. Commissioner Kelly or Commissioner Wilburn, do you want to do a speak out? Oh, James is trying to. There you go.
You can hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I don't really have much except that what we're talking about in terms of being an ally for LAD, basically coming alongside people in the community and sharing with them their concerns and being able to address them and get a better understanding of what, community members are saying. And I'll let Doc take you further on that, but that's basically what it is, is being an ally, because, people have complaints and sometimes they're not fully understood, and if there's a cultural relevance to it that sometimes, other cultures may not fully understand, so that's basically what it is. And I'll have her, like I said, share with you that issue in depth. The other thing is I've been trying to follow Nicole myself, but I had problems trying to connect today, and I have another one tomorrow. So hopefully I'll be able to do better, because what it is when I tried to connect at 12, I couldn't get in. And then I read the program, and it said 2 o'clock, 2 to 3:30. So I tried to get in at, at 2, and couldn't get in. So I called Christine, and she told me that what that was their time, the 2 o'clock piece, So I should have kept trying at 12, I've been down here in the basement all day practically.
But I will get you that that webinar, so you'll be all caught up. You'll be great.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, for some reason I kind of busy during the day, so I can't make the 12 as easily as I thought I would. But I do like to listen to the recorded one. That just seems easier for me because I can do it late afternoon or early evening. So that's a nice advantage to that. But then you can't ask. The first one I did was live, so I could ask, a few questions, and they did answer them. But with the recorded one, it's a little hard to ask any questions. But but it's good. They're really good topics. So anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, Commissioner Kelly.
Yes, thank you. As previously noted, this evening is my last meeting, and I have a number of thank yous to dispense. First and foremost to Councilman Beggs, or President Beggs, for appointing me to this position a number of years ago. And thanks to all of you, my fellow commissioners, as well as to the OPO staff. I have learned so much, and on a personal note, I have been touched by all of your kindnesses. My greatest regret is that I did not quickly enough master all the procedural minutia which governs this particular body. I firmly believe in the concept of civilian oversight, but the regulations imposed upon this body, the procedures that we are required to master are very, very difficult. It's sad to say that after 3 years, I finally am starting to get it. And probably if I were to serve another term, I might be more effective. So if I can make any request of you all, it is insofar as possible with my successor, try and make this service as easy as possible. Please find a way to streamline the policies and the procedures so he or she can feel effective, can feel as if he or she is making a difference. And if there are issues and projects that he or she would like to tackle, to be able to do so without feeling fettered by what may be perceived as roadblocks.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. I've really learned a lot from you, and I do have to say I've been doing this for 5 years, and there is so much to learn. Just example, Mr. Logue, what he just said about the 90 days, I didn't know that. So there is so much to learn doing this. But personally, I just appreciate everything that you've done these last 3 years, and your advice and I'm just going to say your, in a lay term, your way of thinking. As an attorney, you're thinking than what I'm thinking. So I just really, really appreciate you. And
Thank you.
I know you'll do great. I saw the article in the Spokesman. I'm like, yes, with regards to the symphony. So good for you. Good for you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an important year for us.
Yes. Okay. Any other speak out or any other comments anyone would like to make? Okay. So let's talk about the September meeting. In the past, last year we did have a September meeting, but we've had the years before that we didn't because of the NACO conference. So I'm not quite sure. I don't think we're going to have 2 new commissioners by September 15th. So I'm just throwing it out there to Commissioner Wilburn and Commissioner Smith. What are your thoughts on having a September 15th meeting? I did talk to Mr. Logue, and he was feeling that we probably wouldn't have that much, information to go over at that time. Just basically the monthly report. So could you give me your thoughts on what you're thinking? Yes, Commissioner Smith.
I'm fine with that. It seems we've done that in the past, and I know who to call to get information, and hopefully we will have 2 new commissioners for the mid-October meeting.
Okay, so if I heard you correctly, you are saying you're fine with not having a meeting in September. Is that right? What you're saying? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Wilburn?
I'm in agreement, but is it a good idea for the commissioners who are leaving to recommend someone in their district or, to take their place? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, if they know of somebody, certainly, yes.
And as an extension of that, I'm very happy to talk to either candidate or even after they are approved as commissioners. I'm happy to talk with them.
That would be awesome. That would be really, really good. Okay.
Yeah.
So Commissioner Wilburn, so tell me again what you're thinking about the September 15th meeting, yes or no? What do you?
I didn't know if the suggestion mean that they would have someone by then and we could, meet with them or not. But we can skip September 15th. I'm with Commissioner Ladd on that.
All right. So do we need a motion on that? It's been a long time since do we need
So
a motion
moved.
to cancel okay. We're gonna throw one out there. So move that we will not have a meeting in September. A second?
Second.
Okay, seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposing? Okay, any abstaining? All right, so we will not have a meeting in September. So,
Now, is there a date in October?
yes, there is a date in October.
Hmm.
I have it on my calendar right here. It is October 20th.
October 20th.
Is the third Tuesday of October.
Okay.
So, all right. Anything else for the good of the order? All right. I think that will do it. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank
great
you.
August. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank
We'll
you.
miss you.
Take care.
Good luck,
Bye-bye.
Elizabeth.
Thank you.
everyone.